My point is that there are a web of issues that we must resolve as a nation, and it's too easy to pick on poor people. It's too easy to pick on the vulnerable. Your job is to ask different questions so that we can get different answers. And the last thing I'll tell you is, we must act bravely. The legacy of Dr. King is to act bravely. There is nothing, sometimes people think of nonviolence as an act of cowardice. Can you imagine standing as someone spits on you, punches you, bites you? Remember, Dr. King was stabbed before he was shot. By a black person, by the way. Sometimes your skin folk ain't your kinfolk. Can you imagine standing in the midst of all that violence and making the decision not to fight back? There is nothing more courageous than nonviolence. It's a kind of moral courage that says that my action might not stop you from hating me, but it might stop me from hating you, and that matters as well. Dr. King's legacy is one of brave action. What can we do in 2013 to model that? We must act bravely. We must do something. If you don't remember anything else I said today, the biggest problem in the world today is that there are too many people that don't do anything. And it's really that simple. Too many people that don't do anything. The legacy of King is mass action. Local involvement, local commitment, meaning like do something on this campus, and then connect what you do on this campus to what's going on around the country. He said when dogs bite us in Birmingham, we bleed everywhere. When there's a crisis at A&T or State or even Duke, we should be there. When there is homelessness or poverty or illiteracy in this area, we must be there. The legacy of Dr. King is to not just analyze things, but to move forward. King said, never get caught up in the paralysis of analysis. We got to think through this now. We ain't just going to run around doing stuff. But after we think, after we organize, we must do something. Now, I believe in governmental intervention. I believe I spent my life fighting for more funds for schools and fighting to end this thing called mass incarceration and fighting for funding for mental health and finding funds for sexual assault prevention. I believe in all of that. But there's work that we can do today. There's somebody hungry right now, family. And they would benefit from your food. Today. There's a child up the street right now at the elementary school who is exponentially less likely to go to prison if you stand in the school and mentor him. There are young men and women who are exponentially more likely to be students at this school if y'all go to that school and represent. There are children who literally lose vocabulary over the summer because their parents are working while middle-class kids are expanding vocabulary by going on trips. You can increase their chances of finishing high school by reading to them. There are young women who are less likely to become pregnant, to get HIV/AIDS, to become drug addicted, or to drop out if they have access to big sisters, to coaches, to mentors, to athletic programs, to arts programs. We can do that work right now. The question is, what are y'all going to do? This can't just be about us. Because so often we can become comfortable. We come to these schools and we get our fancy degrees and we get our fancy suits and we get our letters. And we forget what we came for. What good is it to be president of this or chair of that? Or I go to schools where there be 50 black people and 25 organizations. Everybody president and vice president. That ain't about the organization. That ain't about the cause. That's about you. You got to let that go. I go in these schools and these organizations and men walking around strutting like they know everything. We've been doing this since forever. And the women in the background knowing they making the most sense. Yet we won't let the women in the front. Remember, at the beginning. And it was Mahalia Jackson, a woman, who screamed out, "Tell him about the dream, Mark." And that's when he hit his height. There's no Martin without Coretta. There's no Nelson without winning. We must embrace the idea as men that our dream for the 21st century must be a new vision of what it means to be men. One that isn't about hate, one that isn't about violence, one that isn't about being emotionally unavailable, one that isn't about being distant, one that is about love and healing and openness and humility. Brothers, we got to do something else. To act greater is to make a commitment to the people you said you're going to serve. I was joking before about these folks, but if you were in a fraternity sorority, the question isn't how good can you stroll, the question isn't how hard did you, well, we don't do that around here, but the question isn't that. It's how much do you live up to the ideals of the organization? Are you serving? Are you sacrificing? Are you teaching? Because if you're just ain't walking, you ain't doing nothing. If you're just barking, you ain't doing nothing. If you're just shimmying, you're doing something, but you gotta do more. Family, we got to do this. The world is bad, but we can change it. The world is hurting, but we can heal it. That's the legacy of Dr. King. The responsibility we have to ourselves, to our community, is just as significant as the responsibility that the government has to us. The books are old, we gotta read them. We make children, we gotta raise them. Drugs in our community, we ain't got to sell them. Damn sure ain't got to smoke them. We have to do better as well. That's how we move into the next phase of this. The people always talk about Dr. King as an I have a dream person. But Dr. King modeled, in some sense, is the dream, but he modeled something else called revolutionary hope. Revolutionary hope. Revolutionary hope. Hope is not the belief that everything is just going to be all right. That's immature. That's unsophisticated. That's what y'all do when y'all take that test y'all didn't study for. Some of y'all get religious at that moment. Dear Lord, just give me a C. Can I get a C? I promise I'll study tomorrow. Just give me a C. That ain't hope. That's blind optimism. No, hope is the belief that the world is bad, but I can change it. The obstacles are immense, but I can overcome them. Hope is about 10 words. I do not have to be what I once was. We do not have to be what we are now. Black folk have never been prisoners. As Howard Thurman said, never ever scale down your dreams to the level of that which is your immediate experience. What does that mean? It means we don't have to be prisoner to the event. We don't have to be prisoner to the moment. We don't have to be prisoner to the statistic. The statistics say ain't none of y'all supposed to be here. The statistics say y'all gonna be pregnant. The statistics say y'all gonna drop out. That y'all gonna be in a state pen. That y'all can't make it. The statistics said that slavery would never end. Slave masters don't retire. But this struggle that Dr. King has modeled for us shows us that we never are prisoner to the event, never prisoner to the circumstance. We have always committed to struggling and sacrificing, to committing and recommitting in such a way that even when the world says something is impossible, we view it as inevitable. When they say it can't happen, we say it must happen. When they say it won't happen, we say it will happen. When they saw slaves, we saw presidents. When they saw you in the state pen, we saw Penn State. When they saw a nation that could never come together for racial healing and reconciliation, they raised amongst us a king that changed the whole world. North Carolina Central, thank you so much.